It's a dangerous place if you're Japan's Prime Minister, has roof tiles that once got swept out to sea, and there's a hidden design that celebrates one of Japan's most famous losers. It's time for secrets of Tokyo Station, and the first is right here on the Marunouchi side. Look closely and you'll find a grand entrance with slopes on either side that are roped off to the public. So what is this? Well, it's the VIP door used by the Imperial Family. Any members taking a train are chauffeured from the nearby palace directly into this covered porch, which leads to the Imperial guest rooms. But this entrance is also used in welcoming other VIPs, such as foreign diplomats. When a new ambassador is appointed, they go to the Imperial Palace to present their credentials to the Emperor. On these occasions, many ambassadors travel from the station to the palace by horse-drawn carriage. These ceremonies happen throughout the year, so it's worth checking to see if one's scheduled when you're in Tokyo. The link is in the description. Now while we're on this side of the station, have a look at the brickwork. The third floor was destroyed in World War II air raids and only restored properly in 2012, and this meant that a large quantity of brick tiles had to be produced. The company that took on the job worked for 10 years to get the colour and shapes just right. The colour process caused a lot of trouble because they had to produce tiles all with different shades that would blend in with the lower floors. If you look carefully though, you can see the join between the old and the new. Now, while it took ages to get the brick tiles right, at least they didn't have the roller coaster ride that the roof tiles had. The natural slates were first sent off to Ishinomaki City in Miyagi Prefecture to be repaired so they could be reused. This was where the slates were originally manufactured. Things were going just fine with over half of the slates cleaned and returned to Tokyo. But then in March 2011, the last batch of 65,000 got swept out to sea in the tsunami, along with the warehouse that was storing them. Game over, you might say, but not so fast. After a frantic 2-week search by the company's employees, 70% of the slates were recovered, and now they're back on the roof where they belong. And that brings us to the most famous bits of that roof, the domes. Look up and you'll see several intriguing features. First, there's the 8 sculptures of zodiac signs, each representing a point of the compass. You'll also see 8 eagles perched up there too, which have a width of just over 2 meters, would you believe? But the most curious feature has to be the keystones in the shape of Toyotomi Hideyoshi's helmet. Toyotomi who? Well, Hideyoshi was a 16th century leader and key architect in the unification of Japan. But the thing is, not long after he died, his rival, Ieyasu Tokugawa, took control and was the first chief of a shogunate that would rule Japan for over 250 years. Now, Tokugawa was the man, so why celebrate a much less successful leader with this design? Well, it's probably because the architect, Tatsuno Kingo, was born in Karatsu, a place in the north of Kyushu that had supported Toyotomi back in the day. But this also celebrates the eventual defeat of the Tokugawa shogunate, which happened in 1868, when power came back to the emperor. In case you're wondering, both domes have identical decoration, so it doesn't matter which one you stop to admire. But go back in time and it would matter, because originally what is now the Marunouchi south exit was the entrance, and the north exit was only for passengers leaving the station. And if we go back just a little further in time, we might be surprised to learn that the station might have had a quite different name. Before it was built, the city had Ueno Station in the north and Shimbashi in the south, but the lack of a direct connection between the two was holding back trade. When railway bigwigs got together to bridge this gap, they decided they wanted a stop in the middle, hence the original name of Chuo Teishaba, or Central Station. But as with the idea that natto is something you should actually eat, there was a lot of debate over this name. Some people thought Central Station was a good name because that's what other cities around the world used, but other folks thought that it would be easier for people in the countryside to understand the location if it were just called Tokyo Station, and the debate went on until they settled on that as the final name a mere 2 weeks before the opening. Now, it's easy to miss as you walk through, but just inside the south exit of the Marunouchi side are a few items preserved from the original station building. Here you can see some of the original brickwork up close and original floor tiles, and the pillar is from the station hotel before it was renovated, and that hotel is actually still here. This is one of the entrances at the front of the Marunouchi building, but there's another one over at the south exit. Although it was common to see hotels attached to railways in 19th century Europe, This was the first one to be built at a station in Japan, and supposedly it's been fully booked ever since it opened in 1915. Something else that you'd never know was here if you hadn't watched this video is the Tokyo Station Gallery, located in the north exit. Although it opened back in 1988, it has a permanent display about the restoration of the station and holds several temporary exhibitions throughout the year. It's a great place to visit if you have a bit of time left before going to the airport and you don't want to stray too far from the station. However, there are some people who probably shouldn't spend too much time here, and that is any Prime Minister of Japan. That's because there have been 2 instances where the Premier has been fatally attacked whilst in the station, and you can find the scenes of the crimes if you know where to look. The first spot is near the Shinkansen gates at the bottom of some stairs. This is where Prime Minister Osachi Hamaguchi was shot on November the 14th, 1930. Although he survived this attack, he died from his injuries 8 months later in 1931. But that wasn't the first grisly day in the station's history. Just 9 years earlier, in 1921, Prime Minister Takashi Hara met his end in a knife attack, and you can find a spot where it happened in the Marunouchi south exit near the ticket machines. After these tragic events, many politicians who felt particularly jumpy started to use the underground Imperial Passage when using the station. Supposedly, this included ministers who were extremely unlikely to be targeted, but would still use the passage just to make themselves look more important. And if you thought that there were some weird stories here, just wait till you hear about Ueno Park. See ya!